Thank you for joining us and welcome to the broadcast. These are some of the stories we've been working on today.
Tonight, Obado speaks out.
I have nothing and absolutely nothing to do with the cruel death of Sharon.
Migori governor calls for speedy investigation into Sharon's murder. His personal assistant Oyamo to remain in custody for 14 days as family members prepare for painful send-off.
Also tonight, NYS2 paper trail lands banks in trouble. CBK slaps 5 banks with 392 million shillings in fines for handling NYS cash.
Plus, running on empty.
Itabidi tuachilie wafanyikazi wengine waende manyumbani.
County slowly grinding to a halt for lack of funds.
Also tonight, speeding the wheels of justice. 3 Matatu drivers charged with reckless driving and negligence after chaotic scenes in CBD.
NTV Tonight with Dennis Okari and Olive Burrows.
Thank you for joining us. You're watching NTV Tonight. Our sign language interpreter tonight is Flora Tieno. You can also join us live on ntv.co.ke/live or on NTV Kenya on Facebook and on Twitter.
Migori Governor Okoth Obado has finally spoken about the death of Rongo University student Sharon Otieno, calling on his fellow politicians and the media to desist from what he calls a primitive assault on his character, seemingly to implicate him in her death.
Obado, who was in the company of his wife Helen and their 2 children, presented the face of a family tormented by the death of the young woman. The short walk to the lawns of the Serena Hotel, Nairobi, Wednesday afternoon must have seemed long for the Obado family. The head of the family and Migori Governor Okoth Obado sandwiched between his aides while his family walked behind him. One would only be left to speculate if it was only the glare of the sun on Helen Obado's face that gave her a frown, or much more than that has hung over the family over the last week.
We are indeed at our very, very lowest in life. So, hata usingizi hakuna, hata appetite hakuna. We are at our very, very lowest.
The Obado family, though quiet on this afternoon, sent out a message of a family standing behind their head at a moment in time when the air is filled with speculation over his involvement with the deceased.
I want to state here very, very clearly and very categorically that I have nothing and absolutely nothing to do with the cruel death of Sharon.
The Migori governor, who has already been questioned over the death of student Sharon Otieno, could neither confirm nor deny being acquainted to the student, but is now sorry for her death and insists that it is important for all the relevant authorities to investigate the matter as soon as possible.
And even you members of the press, you know very well, that is why I talked about the medieval punishments. You know very well that for you, if it is not some big character, then it is not news. And that is why maybe there's that tendency of shifting so that you get the juicier part of it. One of my daughters here.
The 5-minute press conference ended with an introduction to his family, his daughter Evelyn and son Jerry seated on their father's left, while Helen, his wife, sat quietly on his right, bowing her head and seeming to wipe her face from time to time and glancing at her children.
Asante sana.
The family left the venue with the governor in front, managing to wear a smile as he chatted with his aides, his lawyer Cliff Fombetta in tow, with wife and children tagging along further behind. He did change his expression when he left the hotel lobby, boarding his vehicle and leaving. Leila Mohammed, NTV. Parents of slain Rongo University student Sharon Otieno continue to demand justice as they prepare to bury the remains of Sharon's unborn child on Thursday. As this was happening, the High Court in Nairobi ruled that Michael Oyamo, one of the key suspects in the murder, be detained for 14 days at the Muthaiga police station in Nairobi to allow the prosecution enough time to complete investigations. NTV Zainab Ismail with more.
It is the look of pain on a mother's face Mama Melda Auma has not only lost her firstborn daughter, but her unborn grandchild too. Sharon Otieno's murder has left this family in shock and agony.
I'm tired of even this issue. Let the state take immediate action to arrest those who murdered, who slaughtered my daughter Sharon.
There was activity at the late Sharon's home in Magare village, Homa Bay County, when NTV visited today. Her father, Douglas Otieno, cannot speak much as he's overcome by emotions.
Tumepoteza mtoto yetu, anachinjwa kama ng'ombe. Sijui alikuwa amekosa makosa gani. Kama ni makosa, si angeshikwa, apelekwe huko polisini. Tafadhali serikali, chukueni hatua.
Otieno was 7 months pregnant at the time of her death. She was stabbed 8 times, 3 on the neck, 4 times on the back, and once on the left side of the stomach, killing the 7-month-old fetus. This is according to results of an examination conducted by the government pathologist.
Actually, 4th of September this year.
And back in Nairobi at the Milimani Law Courts, Michael Oyamo appeared before High Court Judge Luka Kimaru Wednesday morning, just a day after he was released and rearrested in Migori. The prosecution applied for more time to tie the pieces of evidence together.
During his detention, his rights and fundamental freedoms that are guaranteed by the Constitution shall be protected. He shall be allowed access to his counsel during daytime. His relatives, who shall be vetted, shall also be granted access to see him.
Oyamo Migori Governor Okoth Obado's personal assistant will be held at the Muthaiga police station. He will formally be charged when he appears in court in 2 weeks' time.
You shall be charged, or you may be charged with murder contrary to Section 203 as read with Section 204 of the Penal Code of the Laws of Kenya. And the particulars of the offence are that between 3rd and 4th September 2018 at Owande area, Rachonyo, South Sub-County within Homa Bay County, jointly with others not before court, you murdered Sharon Beryl Otieno.
Efforts by the defense team to have Oyamo released on bail terms did not succeed. The court agreed with the prosecution that Oyamo had to be moved from Homa Bay to the city for his own safety. More suspects are under investigation as detectives hastened to tie up the loose ends on the murder of the young woman. Zainab Ismail, NTV.
The Central Bank of Kenya has fined 5 commercial banks a total of 392 million shillings for violating financial transaction rules stemming from the National Youth Service Scandal number 2. The 5 banks handled a total of 3.5 billion from NYS. As NTV's Mel Miendo reports, this is only the first phase of investigations, with the regulator prioritizing banks with the largest NYS cash flows.
When the second NYS scandal broke out in May 2018, it emerged that at least 6 banks were used in transacting 3.5 billion shillings of the estimated 9 billion shillings of NYS proceeds. At the time, CBK Governor Patrick Njoroge gave his word that the regulator would punish banks involved, terming the loss of funds as unreasonably excessive.
It's not an issue of enforcement or lack of understanding. It is an issue of maybe people not following the guidelines deliberately or deliberately, because how else could you make a mistake that on things that you are completely aware of?
Investigations into which banks were involved in the NYS scam had begun at the time. Now, 4 months down the line, and a penalty of a lump sum 392 million has been charged to 5 banks involved in the NYS transactions. The banks include Standard Chartered Bank, Equity Group, KCB Group, Cooperative Bank of Kenya and Diamond Trust Bank. Of the 5, Stanchart handled the largest transaction of NYS proceeds of 1.6 billion. CBK has fined it 77.5 million, followed by Equity with 886 million of NYS proceeds to pay a fine of 89.5 million shillings. KCB handled 639 million from NYS and has been fined 149.5 million, while Cooperative Bank handled 263 million and is set to pay a fine of 20 million shillings. DTB handled the least amount from NYS proceeds at 162 million and will pay a fine of 56 million. KCB is the highest penalized bank of the 5, while Cooperative is the least. According to CBK, this is the first phase of the investigation where the banks in question violated the requirements of Kenya's anti-money laundering, combating financing of terrorism laws and regulations, including failure to report large cash transactions, failure to undertake adequate customer due diligence, lack of supporting documentation for large transactions, and lapses in the reporting of suspicious transaction to the Financial Reporting Center. In a statement, the regulator states, and I quote, CBK has discussed the detailed findings with boards of directors and senior management of each of the banks. Each has expressed their strong commitment to be fully compliant on all aspects of the law and addressing the identified lapses through time-bound action plans. These action plans will be submitted to the CBK within 14 days and CBK will closely monitor their implementation. End of quote. In addition, CBK has shared the findings with the relevant investigative agencies and an additional set of banks will also be identified and investigated. Malmiendo, NTV.
2 of the 5 banks that have been identified by Melmiendo in that report have been fined by the Central Bank of Kenya over their relationship with the NYS Season 2 scandal, and they've spoken out stating that they're open to investigation and that they will comply with the request from the CBK to give a detailed report within 14 days. The group chief executive officers of KCB Bank and DTB Bank, that is Joshua Oigara and Nasim Devji, both put out statements on Wednesday acknowledging receipt of a CBK report that targeted NYS bank transactions for 2016. In the Kenya Commercial Bank statement, Group CEO and MD Joshua Oigara says, and I quote, "The bank is cooperating with the authorities on this matter. We are reviewing the CBK report and we will respond to the issues raised conclusively within 14 days." In the Diamond Trust Bank DTB statement, the Group CEO and MD Nasim Devji states, and I quote, "We remain committed in our unwavering support to the government in its effort to eradicate corruption and to uphold the integrity of the financial system in order to build a strong, stable, secure financial system." Both banks have stated that they will provide detailed reports at the stipulated time, and DTB says that it remains committed in its unwavering support to the government in its effort to eradicate corruption, while the KCB Bank states that it is cooperating with the authorities on the matter as part of its strict compliance with regulations, noting that they will respond conclusively in the next 14 days. The 14 days being the amount of time given by the Central Bank of Kenya. A corruption case facing Busia Governor Sospeter Ojamong took a new twist today after a witness refused to produce documents he had used to testify against the governor, as 3 other witnesses disowned their statements. Dan Onyabit, who is also the county accountant, insisted that he had not written the documents that included vouchers, saying they had been altered. Defense lawyers informed the anti-corruption court that 3 other witnesses who accompanied the governor to Germany, where a waste management deal worth 8 million shillings was signed, which is at the center of the case, have also disowned their statements, and the 8 million shillings had not been budgeted for in the county budget. Defense lawyers now want the witnesses not to be used to testify against the Governor Ojamong and 5 other co-accused who are facing charges of conspiracy to commit an economic crime and abuse of office. Female legislators have pledged their support for embattled Nairobi County Speaker Beatrice Elachi following her impeachment by the Nairobi County Assembly. The women leaders speaking in Mombasa say the Speaker was being targeted for trying to do the right thing by checking spending by the MCAs. However, as NTV's Brenda Wanga reports, the Nairobi MCAs who are in Mombasa maintain that their action was informed by the performance of the Speaker in the Assembly.
Nairobi County MCAs and their embattled Speaker are both in the coastal county of Mombasa, albeit on different missions. The MCAs attending what they term as their induction meeting ahead of the resumption of the Assembly's sessions. But not all those who attended this 6-day event are meant to be here, at least not today. 6 of them were summoned by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission over their conduct in the Speaker's chambers and the County Assembly of Nairobi on Monday. They say the summons are uncalled for.
Master has been seized with the Committee of Powers and Privileges. And it is within the purview of powers and privileges to investigate and come up with a recommendation before it's forwarded to the EACC.
The MCAs further questioned the rationale behind the summons, stating that they enjoy similar protection as is the case with members of the National Assembly.
Summon the National Assembly members, and if they summoned, what happened after that?
But as they defended themselves and promised to honor the summons, though at a later date, the subject of their outrage in the Assembly, Speaker Beatrice Elachi, was dancing to a different tune. Flanked by fellow women leaders, all wearing white scarves as a sign of support, Elachi shied away from addressing the impeachment directly.
Sitaongea yale yanafanyika kule, maana tumeomba dua, Mungu amesimama mbele. Ukifanya ukweli, kuna wale unasaidia.
But her peers were more straightforward. They accused the MCAs who impeached her of fighting her because of her efforts to steal loopholes that have been abused to drain the county's coffers through unnecessary allowances.
Nasikia kama wengine wanatolewa ati wamekataa kupatia wengine allowance. Ndio mkwanza kukataa allowance. We want to say in no uncertain terms that we will stand with women leaders. You are putting a higher standard on women that you are putting on men.
Sisi tunasimama na Beatrice Elachi. Mashida ya Nairobi County sio mashida ya Beatrice Elachi. Watu kama wanataka kutengeneza county ya Nairobi, waende waketi vizuri, waitengeneze, lakini waache kuleta shida zao kwa mama ambaye baba yake yeye ndiye anayemjua.
The Nairobi MCAs, however, maintained that the reasons for impeaching the speaker were not gender-based, but were because of her conduct while in office, including alleged misuse of public funds and fraud. Brenda Wanga, NTV.
Several female legislators there defending the Nairobi County Assembly Speaker Beatrice Elachi. And whose side are you on, the Nairobi MCAs, or do you believe that the Speaker has been unfairly targeted, as the MPs speaking there believe? Send your thoughts and your comments to NTV Kenya, that is on Twitter and on Facebook, and we'll sample some of them at the end of the bulletin.
Right on. And Kenyans are being affected by the 16% VAT in fuel tax and the high cost of living, and many people having discussions in offices, in the marketplaces, on the streets concerning how the future of this country is going to be run, and they're putting their hopes on politicians. However, government wastage, that's where the Kenyans are putting their sights on, and many people are discussing how the government can work on wasting resources. And Kennedy Mureithi is joining us live in studio to just give us context and break it down for us. Kennedy Mureithi, what do you think needs to happen, or what are the discussions on the ground?
Well, this is a very interesting topic, and as you've rightly said, is that as Kenyans, especially motorists, scratch their heads over the increase in fuel prices that have caused a ripple effect on other commodities, there are those who point at government wastage as one of the contributing factors to the whole that has taken Kenyan government thinking of ways to plug in, which is partly contributes to the 16% VAT tax on fuel products. Actually, suggestions have been put forth at different fora with the hope that President Uhuru Kenyatta will listen and sign the 2018 finance bill and postpone the enactment of the VAT. But even with this issue, the government wastage is coming up, and questions are being raised on the appetite for state officials to hold meetings at 5-star and 4-star hotels. Currently, Nairobi County Assembly members are in Mombasa for what they are calling an induction, and this is all 122 of them. Let us listen in to what they were actually saying at that meeting and what it is all about.
We are going back to the assembly on 25th, and members have come here for induction. That is, even I have seen National Assembly members here. They are doing their committee. That's parliamentary function. There is nothing wrong with that.
this is something very interesting, and they are saying that it is induction. Mark you, this is more than 1 year since they came into office. Now, let us actually do some math and see what is happening. If you look at the screen that we have here, you'll realize that for you to take 122 members of the Nairobi Assembly to Mombasa at 14,000 shillings each per member for 6 days, we are looking at a conservative figure of 10 million. If you look at the screens, please put it up so that Kenyans can also see who are watching. And this is going up to about 10 million shillings, 248,000 cash. Now, members of the assembly are also entitled to what we call ground transfers. The ground transfers, each member is entitled to 20,000 shillings. That is per MCA, which is a one-off figure. If you do the math, that is coming to 2,440,000 shillings. Also, accompanying these members, because they are Shimiwa, they have to have accompanying staff. They have gone with 25 staff members. And if you look at it all, they are receiving an allowance of 11,200 per staff member. If you do the math, that is 11,200 times 25, which is the number, times 6 days, which is coming to 1,680,000. They are also entitled to this, what they are calling the ground transfer. But them is a paltry 2,000 shillings for the whole time. So it is 2,000 times 25, which is coming to 50,000. So that is the amount of money that is being spent on this particular trip. If we do a conservative figure, when we round it off, it is coming to about 17 million shillings. Now, also, Parliament of Kenya has organizes most of its report writing in Mombasa, and members of the Budget and Appropriations Committee are also in Mombasa right now, meeting at a prestigious hotel to talk matters budget. Yet, they are the ones who are supposed to be guiding on how to cut expenditure and seek ways of plugging the budget deficit. However, it is argued that these members want a serene place that is far from their workstations to provide maximum concentration while at work. This is what they are saying about the 5-star and 4-star hotels, because they are saying that if they stayed in Nairobi, where their offices are, probably they will be receiving more calls, they'll be walking into their offices and all. So, another matter that we're also looking at that is contributing to expenditure and what needs to be cut is the executives' foreign trips have also raised questions of necessity and also the number of delegations on such trips and the cost implications. Corruption-related cases such as the NYS saga, the Kenya Power, illegal sugar and such could give fodder for money recovery and fund part of the budget. One of the other things that we also really need to remember is that this year's budget is one of the biggest that we've had so far. And this matter has actually caused conversation everywhere. And Kenyans are scratching their heads and they want to realize, to really think, where else can we get this money so that we don't need to pay the 16% tax that is going to be the VAT that is being meted on petroleum and petroleum products. So, over 2 weeks ago, I had some members of parliament, and when we prodded them further, we tried to think, how else can we get money? And this is what they actually said when we met them as part of the solution to this whole matter.
It is on record that 30% of our budget every year is lost to corruption. How about we start by sealing the loopholes where 30% of 1.7 trillion is going to be nearly 500 billion. Why can't we begin by that? If you're looking for solutions, we have said, let the government cut its expenditure. The government is doing work on corruption, but that work on corruption is not enough. We need them to seal the waste in government. We need them to seal the 30% that goes to waste every year. If we saved 30%, we would not need 16%.
Just recently, the government lost a lot of money when they waived duty for sugar. And this money went into individuals' pockets. Just a few people, actually less than 20 people, got these billions of money, close to 100 billion. With this taxation measure of 16% on fuel, they are only going to raise 70 billion. So why lose 100 billion and then you finger the common man to raise 70 billion? It actually doesn't make sense.
Dennis and Olive, this is a conversation that has just started. You'll realize that President Uhuru Kenyatta came in and he has not spoken on this matter yet. We also do expect that the 14 days that was given by Parliament, or the period within which this discussion is supposed to be, is supposed to end on the 13th. That is tomorrow. That is tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. We do expect probably tomorrow we are going to hear from President Uhuru Kenyatta. So this is part of the discussion that is being brought forth right now on whether are Kenyans ready to pay this 16% that was actually proposed by the IMF, and it has been postponed for quite some time, or are we going to look for other ways? Probably, Dennis and Olive, this is a conversation that really needs to be told and to be heard as Kenyans.
Well, Kennedy, before you step out, I'm still stuck at the point where you are saying that the reasons why they're going to Mombasa is they don't want to, being in Mombasa, they will not be picking their phone calls, and staying in Nairobi, they wouldn't be walking into their offices. Really? That's the reason why they have to go all the way and spend all that money?
Well, Dennis, if you realize, that is one of the reasons that has been given over time. And for members of parliament, if we took this, if the report writing was probably, let's say, in Naivasha, the thinking is that even if the next day you wanted to have a full team to discuss probably serious matters, some of them could rush back to Nairobi because it is 2 hours away. But if they wanted a serene, that is the argument that we've been given so far and has been repeated over time, is that if you took them to Mombasa, they will actually stay there and they will not come back to Nairobi as soon as possible, probably if only there was an emergency. So there is full concentration on the work that they are doing on that report.
Well, and obviously they'll be relaxed, they'll go for swimming and, you know.
It's a 5-star and a 4-star hotel, Olive.
All right, thank you very much, Kennedy. We give you a break now to just take all that in, but we'll be back shortly. Welcome back. You're watching NTV Tonight. 3 people, among them a police officer, have been killed after fracas erupted at Kenya town in Kisi County over the killing of a Matatu conductor.
There were running battles for the better part of the afternoon at Kenya town. 2 other police officers and a student were also injured during the fracas. The fracas erupted after the conductor was reported to have been shot dead by a police officer after being trailed to Mangeche area about 3 kilometers from the town. The police officer who was killed is said to have been cornered by irate members of the public after his gun ran out of bullets as he was quelling the protests.
Acting Kisi County Police Commander Francis Nguli says they have begun investigations into the incident.
Three Matatu drivers who are part of the Matatu madness along Moi Avenue in Nairobi on Sunday have been charged with recklessness and negligence. They are Joseph Muriuki Kinuthia, the Matatu driver of KCH 016, John Mwaura Wanjiru, the driver of KCL 809S, and Victor Wanjao Wambui of KCR 169C. The charges were charged and granted a cash bail of 50,000 shillings each and 100,000 traffic offences bail. This is after the group of youth caused chaos in the Central Business District en route to Meru for a reggae show. They engaged in dangerous stunts on the road with utter disregard for traffic laws, endangering their safety as well as that of other motorists and pedestrians. Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i has assured candidates whose learning was disrupted by the chaos in the Mao that the government will ensure they sit national examinations. More than 15 schools in Narok South have been closed indefinitely due to the clashes.
Today was Mzee Kapolonto Perez's final journey. Kapolonto, who was a herder, and 4 other people lost their lives in the recent Mao skirmishes that disrupted the lives of many who have fled their homes. It is reported that the murder of Kapolonto a week ago by cattle rustlers sparked the violence. Learners were also affected due to the clashes. Over 15 schools are closed, but the Interior Cabinet Secretary has assured candidates that the government will ensure they sit national examinations.
All our children who are registered to do exams, including our children who have been disturbed in the Mao, to ensure that every one of our children who is registered to do exams will do their exams. We will work with the colleagues in the Ministry of Education and the Kenya National Examinations Council to ensure that every one of our children who is registered to do exams goes ahead and does the exam. We'll work together on this and then provide the security that we need to deliver on this.
A group of leaders from Narok are demanding action against perpetrators of violence in the region. The leaders reject the idea that the violence was sparked by cattle rustling as is claimed. The leaders said restoration of Mao Forest was not negotiable.
Nasikia huyu mtu mwingine alikuwa sijui governor wa Bomet, ambaye kwanza yeye ndiye alivurusha watu huko Chepalungu, akaleta watu na malori huku ati wakuje Mao Forest, akisema ati natembea alikuwa DO Narok na kuanza kupeana mashamba. Kwani sisi ni wajinga? Tangu lini DO ama DC akapeana shamba? We DC uko hapo unapeananga shamba?
I want the Minister for Lands to come out and explain to us the processes of getting a title deed. I want her to come out and tell the Kenyan people whether you can get a title deed where there was no setting a part of land, where there was no demarcation, where there was no process at all.
Kapolonto was buried at Olmusakwa village in Narok South sub-county. Sharon Baranga, NTV.
The late Jacob Samba, the man said to have fallen from the 4th floor of a flat to his death at his home in Umoja Estate, died of severe head injuries. An autopsy examination conducted at City Mortuary on Wednesday morning revealed that the 32-year-old sustained head injuries from a blunt object which led to internal bleeding. Samba is said to have fallen from the 4th floor to his death last Thursday. The body has been transferred to the Chiromo funeral parlor.
The cause of death is severe head injuries due to blunt force trauma. And If you ask my opinion, this is consistent with a fall from height.
We take a short break, but on the other side of the break, I'll be back with the business news. Now for the business news. A row is brewing between 4 senior staff of Cyton Investments and Britam, the company where they used to work before branching out to set up Cyton. On Tuesday, Britam successfully managed to have a case in which the 4 are accused of having had oversight over the irregular transfer of 1.2 billion shillings taken to full trial. Cyton's chief executive, Edwin Dande, has disagreed with the ruling, stating that he and his team will tackle the matter head-on in order to exonerate themselves completely. The case stems from the acrimonious departure of the 4 individuals from Britam to establish their own firm, Cyton Investments. In a statement, Dande says the reason the 4 left Britam is because they could not be party to malpractices that they were being prevailed upon to execute. Some residents living within border regions have devised an ingenious method of mitigating against the high cost of fuel as a result of the recent imposition of VAT. It started with residents of Busia heading into Uganda to buy cheaper fuel, and now those in Moyale are following suit. NTV's Ahmed Maulid tells us more from Mandera County.
This petrol station located in downtown Moyale town was once busy. but now it sits empty. The recent hike in the cost of fuel has led to motorists staying away. Since the 16% VAT on fuel came into effect days ago, petrol stations across Moyale town have suffered dwindling customer numbers, as many of them say they can no longer afford the commodity.
Sasa tunataka funga sasa. Kuna namna ni kufunga tu. Pesa mingi tulitoa kwa hii kazi karibu milioni 10 na kadhaa. Sasa iko shida kama hiyo.
Motorists have opted to cross the border into Ethiopia, where fuel is much cheaper, retailing at 70 shilling per litre. The same fuel on the Kenyan side of the border goes for between 140 shilling and 150 shilling per litre.
Sana ile shida yenye tunapata hapo kwa tuktuk ni shida ya mafuta. Mafuta bei ya hapa Kenya ni 150, kule Ethiopia tunanunua na 70. Mainly huwa tunavuka hata sasa kujaza tank ndio tukuje kufanya hapa, na hiyo bado inatukost kutumia hiyo mafuta, na hiyo mafuta ndo means ya kutafuta nayo riski zingine. Hapo ni 150, huko ni 70 huko sasa tunakimbia sasa ile bei rahisi sana ndio sisi tunakimbia boda.
In other major towns in Madera County like Takaba sub-county, vehicles and motorbikes are getting reprieve in Ethiopia because of its proximity and lower fuel prices. Ahmed Abdi, NTV, Moyale, Marsabit County.
Qatar Airways will launch direct flights to Mombasa in December. The entry of the Middle East carrier into the coastal route is expected to provide stiff competition for local carriers and at the same time promote tourism. Qatar will use an Airbus A320 for the flights from Doha to Mombasa and will have 4 flights each week. It joins Ethiopian Airlines, Turkish Airlines and Rwandair as the international carriers that fly directly to Mombasa. Kenya and the Democratic Republic of Congo are set to sign an economic cooperation agreement to strengthen the ties between the two nations. Deputy President William Ruto is in Brazzaville to witness the signing of the agreement with the Central African country. Among the sectors the agreement will open up trade opportunities to include mining, agriculture, science and technology. Security matters are also set to take center stage during Ruto's visit. The two countries will establish a joint cooperation commission which will be chaired by the respective foreign affairs ministers. The commission will monitor and evaluate the implementation of the programs under the Cooperation Pact and give proposals on ways to deepen relations. The European Parliament on Wednesday approved a controversial European Union copyright law that hands more power to news and record companies against internet giants like Google and Facebook. Backing the draft to our traditional media in urgent search of a revenue stream at a time when web users shun newspapers and TV and advertising revenue is siphoned away by online platforms. European lawmakers were sharply divided on the issue, with both sides engaging in one of the biggest rounds of lobbying that the EU has ever seen. The final version of the approved legislation compels the internet giants to pay traditional media companies fees for using some of their content, but not for the use of the daily generated hyperlinks for news stories.
Chi è a favore? Chi si astiene? Facciamo un check. La proposta della Commissione per appello nominale.
That's it for the business news, but not before we bring you the financials.
NTV Financial Report in association with the University of Nairobi. Join the renowned University of Nairobi School of Business for market-driven.
Welcome back. A 50-year-old grandma, Mercy Kimunyu, has sued her two youthful neighbors, accusing them of stealing her ripe bunch of bananas worth 500 shillings in a case which recently left a Karatina caught in stitches.
The accused, John Murage and Margaret Wangari, denied the charge, as NTV's Melita Oletenges now reports. Mercy, the complainant, spoke about why she filed a case that would be deemed unusual by many and the alcoholism crisis in Korogoto village that has led many youths to commit petty offenses just to get drunk.
Wakaburuta na huku, sasa ndio wakakata na huku, alafu wakarudisha nini.
Mercy Kimunyu shows me what is left of her fruit bunch that was stolen. She says her ripe bananas were hanging on this banana plant. She planned to sell the whole bunch for 500 shillings, but that did not happen. It was cut down by thieves that she says are well known to her. Mercy says her friend asked her for 120 shillings to buy bananas, and she offered to sell her part of the ripe bunch that she left in the orchard.
Nikamwambia asinunue ndizi, niko na ndizi iko tayari nyumbani, niende nyumbani alafu nimteremkie naye.
After a while, she left her shop in Korogoto shopping center and headed to her house a few minutes away. She says she discovered that her bunch of bananas was missing.
Nikamwambia nimeenda nikakuta ndizi yangu haiko. Kwa hivyo Sijui kaa ni kuibiwa ama ni nini.
As they discussed the sudden disappearance of bananas from a farm, another friend joined them.
Akakuja, akaniuliza ati unaongea maneno ya ndizi. Akaniambia fanya hivi. Kuna ndizi imeletwa na Wangari na John hapo nyuma kwa mbaya yangu. Kwa hivyo kuja waangalie kama hiyo ndizi ni yako.
She identified her bunch of bananas and immediately reported to the nearby AP's post and later recorded a statement at Karatina police station. Days later on Monday this week, she went to court seeking justice.
Jaji mwenyewe akaniambia ati hiyo kesi yangu haiwezi kapeleka hawa watu mbele juu ati nini yao maximum yao wafungi maabusu ikiwa wajachukua kitu iko above 2000.
She however had a different view regarding the fate of the alleged offenders.
Lakini mimi nilikuwa nataka wafungwe juu wamenisumbua sana kwa nduka yangu wasiweki kitu nje na kasi yao ni kusurula kutoka asubuhi mpaka jioni.
A bunch of bananas hardly mature here in Korogoto village in Karatina, not because there are no favorable conditions for the plant to mature, but because they are stolen before the fruits are ripe and sold in exchange for alcohol. This trend is what Mercy tells me has caused her to seek the intervention of the courts.
Wacha nikwambie, unaweza sema ati majirani tujuane, lakini kuwe kuna mtu hawezi, hakuna maana ya kujuana kama unanikosea.
Watu wanakuja wakachukua kitu yako wakaenda wakauza pesa dogo tu wakaona pesa za kunywa pombe.
While some residents have condemned cases of petty theft in the area and even lauded Mercy for taking the step to take the matter to court, some have blamed it on the government for failing to secure job opportunities for the young people. The case will be mentioned on October 10th next month. Melita Oletenges, NTV, Nyeri.
Residents of Yamumbi and Lemok villages within Uasin Gishu County are now appealing to elders from the Kikuyu and Kalenjin communities to offer an explanation on a mugumo tree that fell a month ago and has reportedly risen again with its roots firmly back in the soil.
And as our reporter Lois Songoyo explains, villagers are grappling with various explanations about this strange phenomenon, with some falling just short of declaring the site a holy shrine.
Yamambi village is usually dull and sleepy, but it would become a host to several people curious to catch a glimpse of this rare occurrence. The mode of transport did not matter, they just had to be there. And one by one, they thronged the site of what some now refer to as a miracle tree. My first time kuona. A standard 4 pupil at Gateway Primary School now claims to have witnessed the occurrence on his way to school, becoming the center of attraction.
Naambia hii niliona mimi nikaishtuka, ilikuwa mashangao sana. Ilikuwa inaamka pole pole hivi. Alafu karibu ifike katikati ikainuka na nguvu na force.
His mother, Susan Lele, initially dismissed the claims but now has a different view.
Kweli huyu mtu ulikuwa umeanguka, hii mizizi ilikuwa imeinuka hivi. Sasa mtu wenyewe ulikuwa umeanguka mpaka huko kwa shamba.
The news so shocking that villagers are yet to come to terms with the incident. They now want elders to offer a possible interpretation.
Ile ya zamani ya Kikuyu anaitwa Kamunu. Jana tukakuja nao mpaka hapa wakaangalia, wakawatuambia wataenda kuzungumza, watuambie sababu.
To the taxi and border operators, the incident was a major blessing.
Hiyo mugume imefanya biashara yetu imekuwa mzuri. Nafurahi kwa sababu watu imenawiri, wanatuambia tu tuwalete.
Some just falling short of declaring the place a holy shrine.
Nimeenda hapo chini nikapata maji nachipuka ndani. Wakati nimekunywa hiyo maji, nasikia nimepona, kifua ilikuwa na shida.
In African traditional society, a mugumo tree was considered sacred. As such, residents here tell me that is the sole reason they kept tabs with this particular tree and they were able to file these particular events. So is it real or not? But in the eyes of the residents here, they say the reports they have made on this day are actually real time. Lois Wangoi, NTV, Yamombi, in the county of Uasin Gishu.
Interesting story there by Lois Wangoi. Do you believe it should be? It's an interesting story the Mugumo tree fell and then now it's back on its feet, so to speak.
That's why they want to turn it into a holy shrine, but these are bizarre stories. First you had all the 10 guests with stealing bananas and there was a shot of chicken there, so I was just thinking, this is giving the same guys ideas. They're very full, healthy village chicken.
Okay, we take a short break on that note, but we'll be back with the sports news.
It is time to play. I'm Warothe Kiru, and the Kenya Rugby Union is short of funds, but we'll still make sure that they will meet all the obligations of the national teams in what will be a busy period for the Simba's 15th squad and the Shujaa 7th team. That was the admission of the acting KRU CEO, Sylvia Kamau, when she spoke to our Sean Kodovilis about the launch of a pay bill number to raise funds for the Kenya Simbas as they prepare for the final World Cup qualifying repechage.
It's not easy. We haven't been able to manage to be able to cover the debt, the gap that has been left. We scrabble, we struggle to keep the teams afloat. However, for us, it's not been that bad because we are able to manage to hold the teams afloat, all the squads afloat. We have the women Lionesses, the Simbas, we have the Shujaa, Chipu. We've managed to have all these teams meet their obligations.
It seems like when you look at the priorities, they seem to be coming thick and fast. I think most immediate is Kenya Simbas. That'll be, of course, followed by Shujaa, who have the World Rugby Sevens coming up soon. Starting off with the Simbas, it took a lot of people by surprise, but you've opened a pay bill number for raising money for the Simbas. Why is that?
When we thought about the pay bill number, for us, the pay bill number is just one way of raising funds. There are a couple of proposals around us, and we have accepted some offers. We actually did get offers yesterday from the pay bill when we launched the pay bill. So for us, the pay bill number was just one way avenue of raising revenue.
There's obviously the private sector. This is a national team. The government, have they shown their commitment for the repo charge?
Yes, we are in talks with the government. We've talked to the NSF, and we've given them our budget and our expectation. That is a budget for preparation and into the repechage. And yes, we can say that our budget has received approvals, the first phase of approvals, but we all know the government bureaucracy, so it's still going to go to a couple of more offices. We've reached out to the ministry and we've asked them. They are aware that we are going to the repechage, and they've agreed to come on board and partner with us and help us.
Now, sports is a multi-billion-dollar industry, but just not in Kenya just yet. We pray for a day where federations will not have begging balls out to support the national teams. And Gor Mahia striker Jacques Tuisenge is raring to beat Everton at the second time of asking when the two sides face off at the Goodison Park in November. Tuisenge scored during the 2-1 Kogalo loss in the first SportPesa Super Cup trophy game between the Kenyan Premier League champions and one of English Premier League most seasoned clubs. Everton played in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, that featured Wayne Rooney in 2017. Gor won the second edition of the Super Cup by seeing off Simba of Tanzania 2-0 in July. According to SportPesa officials, the For Charity friendly will feature Everton's first team players with tickets retaining at a paltry £5 for adults and £1 for the under 18.
Ni second chance tumepata. Game ya kwanza tumefungwa na Everton Tanzania. This is the second chance tumepata ya kufunga Everton.
Going there to play in the English Premiership, even though it's a friendly, it's a fantastic chance for us to show the world, as we did in Tanzania, that Kenyan football is strong.
And we look forward for all the Kenyans and Africans to support the first Kenyan team to play on a Premier League pitch with an English top Premier League game with the first squad of Everton FC.
All is set for this year's edition of the Kenya's Premier Tennis Tournament, the Britam Kenya Open, that is scheduled to serve off at the Nairobi Club this weekend. Over 200 players from across the world have confirmed their entries, which include last year's winner, Ugandan Duncan Mugabe. However, three-time winner of the tournament, Kenyan Ismail Shangawa, who won the tournament in 2014, 2015 and 2016, is ready to add his fourth title. With a prize of 1.5 million shillings to the winner, this year it is expected that top tennis action will be served. As part of preparations, Tennis Kenya has been running a juniors tournament in its effort to develop players for the future.
Kenya Open is the #1, like the biggest tournament in Kenya, in East Africa. Right. So like a lot of players, they're coming. Plus we have more players that are coming to play this tournament more than the other one. So this one, that's why they topped it. They ranked it #1 in the East Africa, because it's really big and good players. They like coming to Kenya. You know, they enjoy it to come in Kenya. But I mean, it's cold now. So.
Now, Shangawa is a tennis player who also is a rapper. But now let me tell you about a president who is a former footballer and who still plays football. And Liberian President George Weah played in an international friendly for his country on Tuesday at the age of 51, where the first African footballer to win FIFA's World Player of the Year award featured for 79 minutes of a 2-1 home defeat by Nigeria in Monrovia. Liberia arranged the friendly to retire their number 14 shirt worn by Weah at his playing peak. The former AC Milan striker, sworn in as president in January, received a standing ovation as he was substituted. Nigeria fielded a reasonably strong team, including Leicester City's Wilfred Ndidi, Peter Etebo of Stoke City, and Manchester City's Kelechi Iheanacho. Now, let's talk about footballers behaving badly. And France World Cup winning captain Hugo Lloris has been banned from driving for 20 months and fined after pleading guilty to a charge of drink driving. The Tottenham Hotspur goalkeeper, who has apologized for the incident, admitted being more than... Now, this story refuses to die down everywhere you go, in the newsroom, even here in studio, and we'll be having a chat about it shortly. But an Australian newspaper defied international criticism and allegations of racism when it reprinted a controversial cartoon on its front page depicting US tennis star Serena Williams having a temper tantrum at the US Open. The Herald Sun, owned by News Corp, first published the caricature of Williams with exaggerated lips and tongue and curly hair rising from the top of her head. As a professional tennis player having a moment on the tennis court, but it has spiraled into women's rights, black rights, and still waiting to see how far it will go. But that's your sport. Thank you for watching, and do have a good night.
We had for you, but before we leave the studio, or rather this story about Serena Williams. I know Olive is here, so we're in trouble. There are only two men here. But do you think, because you're doing sports, I've been watching this and reading the stories, do you think she's playing these three cards, the sexism card, the race card, and the victim card?
No, what I'd like to know is why every time a black woman has an issue, all of a sudden she's an angry black woman.
There we go.
Well, for me, from a sporting perspective, all I'll say is this. There's on the court coaching is prohibited in a Grand Slam. Her coach admitted to coaching her. That was the first violation. Then she stomped on her racket. That's a racket abuse. That's another violation. Then she argued with the officials and abused the umpire. That's
she called him a thief and a liar. She did. She called him. But don't the men
let me finish on this. So all those three are okay. The umpire Carlos Ramos was playing by the book. But now the question that comes is, first, was this being done because she's a woman? Was it being done because she's black? And you're right. Nick Kyrgios, the Australian tennis player, has moments on the pitch. And this also comes on the back of two things. One, Serena had her catsuit banned by the French Open. So that's one thing. Then there's a tennis player who was changing in court and she got penalized. But men go shirtless a lot on the court.
Yes, they do. So, like, remember during the US Open, there was a player who was saying it was like a sauna, it was so hot.
Yes.
He took off his shirt. Did he get us penalized like the female player got penalized?
I think we're stretching this race card too far. And this
have you seen the cartoon?
Card too. No, the cartoon is something different, but she broke several rules and the heat of the moment, because this is a big
The issue is not whether, I mean, she's entitled to have a reaction. The issue is she penalized the same way that the male players are penalized?
Two wrongs don't make a right.
Okay.
And that's actually what Billie Jean said. We shouldn't be saying that because men do it, then she should be allowed to do it.
Exactly.
Yes. So there's that part. But
yeah, I mean, but there has to be some equality even on the penalization.
Kenya Open starts on Saturday. Right. We'll be going with you to Nairobi Club. Yes. I'm so glad that everyone is currently loving tennis, and I do hope that we'll get to see a lot of all these people who have a lot of opinions about Serena Williams at Nairobi Club for the Kenya Open, and also just watch Top Sport, and we'll try and break it down for you.
My name is Dennis Okari.
And I'm Olive Burrows. Enjoy the rest of your viewing. Our sign language interpreter has been Flora Tino.
Good night.